Hello everyone and welcome to this another episode of 3D Prototyping in Unity. My name is Kasanas. In the last episode we took care of having our character be able to sneak. So right now he can run and he can walk. That's what I'm calling sneak. His walk is actually a sneak. But in this episode, guys, I'd like him to be able to leave the ground. Right now we can run back and forth across these platforms. We can go across the platforms, but we can't actually jump across to new platforms. And that is obviously a very important part of any side-scrolling platformer, or 2.5D side-scrolling platformer. So guys, in this episode, we're going to take a look at the jump. Alright, let's get started. Okay, there's a number of things that we really need to do to be able to get this player jumping. And I'm not sure yet, depending on how long it goes, we might break this up into 2 episodes, into the actual creation of the animation states and the different things that we need, and the code. But we'll see how long this takes me. I don't like to go past about 15 or 20 minutes at the longest in these episodes. Any longer, and I know people lose interest and fall asleep, and etc., etc. So anyway, in this episode, what we are going to be doing is creating the jump. And there are a number of things that we need to do. The idea we're going to use behind creating the jump is to create a small sphere underneath the character, and anything that sphere collides with will tell us whether or not we're connected to the ground. If we are connected to the ground, then we can jump. If we're not connected to the ground, we can't jump. And that's the idea we're using here. And yes, you could use the same concept to create a double jump. Now, obviously, once you're in the air, you're going to have a separate parameter saying a double jump. But in our case, we're not going to do that. Our character is going to be able to jump one time. Alright, so the first thing we need to do is identify what is the ground and what isn't the ground. We might want our character to be able to jump off of certain things and not jump off of others. Like maybe they can't jump off of, I don't know, some slanted board that you don't want them to climb off of, etc. So we're going to identify what the ground is. And as long as we're touching the ground, then we can jump. You can see over here on the side, let me go back one step for now. We can see over here that we've got ourselves our simple platform. Actually, let's take a look at it in the prefab so it updates everything. In the prefab, we can see that this is our simple platform, and we have one right here. All right, this is our simple platform. And currently, the layer itself it's on the default layer. Okay, and we're going to use a layer mask and a brand new layer to identify what is the ground and what is not the ground. Okay, to do so, extremely simple. I'm going to go over to Layer. I'm going to click this little drop down, and I'm going to say Add New Layer. I'm going to come up with this list, and there's a number of default layers already available to you. We're going to start a brand new one. So we're going to go down to, in my case, I'm going to use Layer 8, and I'm going to call it with a capital G, Ground. You don't have to call it with a capital G. I don't know why I said that. You can call it anything you want. The only thing you want to make sure you're doing is remembering the name and calling it something that you can remember later on to identify this as a ground. Okay? Now that I've created this brand new layer, I'm going to go back to the platform here itself, and I'm going to change its default layer, or its current layer from default to ground. And it's going to ask me, hey, do you want to change the children, or do you want to just do the single object? In our case, we don't really care, so I'm just going to say yes, change the children. And what that basically means is anything underneath here, so in this case here, the actual platform itself has its layer changed to ground as well. If I said, no, don't change the children, then it wouldn't have worked. It would have not changed the children. And in fact, in this case here, I'm glad that I said yes, change the children, because I forgot how I had set this up. The top layer has nothing associated with it, and the bottom layer actually is the thing that has the collider. We want to make sure that however you've built your platforms, that these colliders themselves are on the ground layer, because that's the object that we're going to investigate when we actually do our sphere underneath the character and collect the colliders it's connected to. We want to make sure that the object, in our case ground, where our actual box collider is on the ground layer. Okay? Hopefully that was clear. I'm kind of babbling this morning, which is rough. My girls were up very, very late last night, and they got up really early this morning, so I'm really tired today. But I'm going to try and get through these for you. All right, anyway, that being the case, you want to go through in any of the platforms you've created, you want to make sure that those are on the ground layer, or any of the objects that you want your player to be able to jump off of, you want it to be on the ground layer. Okay? So far, so good. We're going to take a look at the code that searches for this ground layer later on. Right now, we're going to take a look at a few more things that need to be done in order to make this character jump. Now, in an earlier episode, we created our animation map, or our animation state machine. If you select your character and you click on Animator, if you don't have an Animator window open, you can go to Window, find Animator in the list, and it'll pop up. we're going to open up the animation state machine for our character. And if you remember correctly, if we take a look at the actual model for this soldier, sorry, that's him. If we take a look at the actual soldier model right here, we created a number of animations in an earlier episode. We used already player idle, and we used our run, we used our walk, and now we haven't used our melee yet. We have a number of different additional ones. We have our player fall, our player jump, and our player land. We're going to take our player land and we're going to drag it and we're going to drop it right here. Okay, we're going to only have to put this one into our actual state machine. We're going to use an idea. We're going to use the idea of a blend tree to blend between both the fall and the jump state. Now, how this is going to work? Whenever our character is affected by gravity, our rigid body is going to drag the character down, and we already know that. If I hit play right now, we already know our character falls until he hits the ground, and once he hits the ground, then our character can run, etc. And as long as that character is falling, as long as it's moving and hasn't collided with anything, our character, its rigid body, has a component in the Y direction, so some value in the Y direction. In our case, we're going to consider that Y direction, in this 2.5D side-scroller, we're going to consider that Y direction our vertical speed, so the speed that the rigid body is traveling at in up and down. Okay, and we're going to use that up and down speed to determine how fast our character is going, whether or not it's actually jumping or it's landing. Okay, now let's take a look first. Oh, and there's one more thing that we want to check. The other thing that we have to know for certain is whether or not our character is grounded or not grounded. The concept we're using to be able to jump is if our character is not grounded, so in this case here we set our platform to be ground, and if that little sphere that we're going to create later on hasn't intersected anything, then our character is not actually on the ground. If our character is not grounded, then it's either going to be in the falling state or in the jumping state, depending on how fast vertically it's moving up and down. All right, that's how we determine whether or not our character is on the ground. Okay, so we're going to add a number of different parameters. So click on your parameters tab. We're going to add a number of different parameters in here. The first thing we're going to add is we're going to add a float, and this float is going to be called vertical speed. All right, and once again, that float represents how fast our character is traveling up and down. And the second parameter we're going to add is a bool, and it's going to be called grounded. Okay, if our character is on the ground, then grounded is going to be true, and if our character is not on the ground, then grounded is going to be false. Okay, that's how we're doing it. Now, I mentioned we're going to use a concept called a blend tree to blend between the jump and the falling state, depending on how fast the character is actually going. Okay, to create a new blend state, you can simply right-click anywhere in the gray and say Create State from New Blend Tree, and boom, this brand new state is going to show up. And we're going to rename this right away. We're going to rename it to Jump Blend Tree. Jump Blend Tree, my original name. All right, Jump Blend Tree. And the Jump Blend Tree, if I double click on it, it's going to open up another window. And we can see up here in the corner that we've kind of got this directory structure up here. I don't know what else to call it. I think they call it breadcrumb is what they call it on the Unity site. This breadcrumb list or channel options. If I click on base layer again, it'll take me back here. And if I double click on there, it'll take me inside to this blend tree. Okay. Now this blend tree, we're going to do a single parameter blend tree, a 1D blend tree is what we're calling it, what they call it, which means it takes a single parameter to allow switching between whatever states are going to be existing within this actual blend tree. And in our case, as I mentioned, we're going to be using vertical speed. So you can go to the parameter, you can click on the little arrow, the drop-down arrow, and choose vertical speed. Bam! All right, with vertical speed selected, we now have to select our states that we can go between. So right here is our motion list, and currently it's empty. I'm going to right-click the plus sign, and I'm going to add a motion field, and I'm going to find in my list, I just clicked on the little nipple thing there, I'm going to find in this list my player jump. All right, and bam, it automatically gets added. Okay, the second thing I'm going to add, plus, I'm going to add a second motion field, or second motion state, excuse me. Click the little nipple thing, and I'm going to find player fall. So these are the two states that we can kind of go between based on vertical speed. And currently the way it's set up is if our we have automated thresholds on. If our threshold is greater than, so if vertical speed is greater than 0, then it's going to be traveling along here like this. All right, and at some state, you can see that the character itself, if I look at that character over there, my actual little character down here, as I scroll through, it's combining the two different states. So this one here is my player jump state. And if I scroll through my player jump all the way along, when I hit the other side where it's 1, so a value of 1, you can see the other threshold right here is 1, I'm completely in my player fall state. And everything in between is some combination of those two. Okay? So that's what we're looking at. If we're all the way one way or all the way the other way, we're in either one state or the other. But if we're somewhere in between, then we are blending between those two states. Okay? That's the idea behind this blend tree. Now, automated threshold is not what we want. We don't actually want to use an automated threshold. We want to define our threshold ourselves. So I'm going to turn this off. Bam. And when I do, we're going to end up with a couple of different options here. Now, I'm going to ignore these different options, and all I'm going to do is change my values here. And I know from experience that I want my player jump to have a vertical speed of anything 1 or below. All right, and I also want, this thing here is the, that symbol there is the animation speed, the animation timing speed, and I'm going to change it so that it is, on my player jump, it is 5. So it's actually running the animation at 5 times the speed. All right, so it's changed my animation speed. Now, the player fall. So right now, you can see I've lost my crossing, and that's because my player fall has no value. My player fall, if at any time my player is going faster than -5, all right, at -5, my player is completely falling. And I'm going to change again this value to 5, so I go through my animation a little faster. If at any time my vertical speed is -5, I am all the way in the fall state. And if my vertical speed is greater than 1 or greater, then I'm all the way in my jump state. All right. So that's where we're kind of staying right now, and that's what we want to do. Now let's go back to, so this is all I want to change. So I've got -5, and I know those numbers from experience. That's all. I just tried some numbers in there and found the numbers I liked. -5 and 1 and 5 and 5. Okay, let's go back to our base layer. Now, to finish creating this map, what I have to do is I have to decide from what state I can actually enter my blend tree. At what state can I enter my blend tree? I have no idea why I said that twice. Anyway, anyway, guys, I'm so tired today. I'm sorry. Anyway, what we have to decide is why we can go to our blend, why we can go to our land, and why we can go to wherever we're going next, where we're going next. From the land to someplace. All right? I know that I want my player to be able to jump whenever they want. So whether they're idling, whether they're running, or whether they're walking. So any of the states I currently have here, I want my player to be able to jump from. All right? So I'm going to list from any state, which is this blue state right here. I'm going to make a transition from any state to my jump. Okay? And I'm going to click on the little parameter here. There's no exit time, which is great. What I am going to do is I'm going to change my conditions to be when I am going to my grounded, when I am not grounded. So whenever my grounded is false, I'm going to be entering this blend tree. All right, and I'll have a vertical speed at that point. I won't be touching the ground, so I'll probably be falling. And I will go into one state or the other depending on how fast my vertical speed is, and that's already been determined by our blend tree. So that's great. We can leave from any state to jump. Now, I want my player, once they've hit the ground again, I want my player to run the landed animation. All right, so I'm going to click on here, make my transition. I'm going to click on the little arrow, and I'm going to set up my state to be if grounded is true. So the second we are grounded again, our player is going to leave or exit whatever state it was in, the falling or the jumping state, and it's going to go into the land animation. And let's just adjust this a little bit. I'm going to tighten this up a bit, and we can decide on this later. I'm not sure if I want it tight or not. We can decide on that a little bit later on. Anyway, I'm going to make it small enough so it's just in the jump, because the jump is really only 1 or 2 frames if I remember correctly. Just like that. Now, I'm going to leave has exit state on. Oh, no, sorry. I'm going to turn it off in this one here. Turn off has exit state. So, once again, we will never leave unless we're suddenly grounded. All right? Lastly, what state do I want this player to enter into? And in my case, I kind of want my player to enter back into the idle state. And that way there, the player can transition from idle state into whatever else it needs to go into. Okay? So I'm going to click on my player land, right-click, make transition, and have him go to the idle state. And once again, I've got myself a transition here, and I'm going to go in. I'm going to leave has exit time turned on in this. I'm going to allow my player land animation to play, and once it's done playing, then I'm going to exit out of that state and go back into the idle. And from the idle state, I will go into wherever I need to go afterwards. Our tree stays the same. Okay? So that's all we really need to do right now to be able to prepare this character to jump. All right, he's ready to be prepared to jump. Now we have to write the code. And I think that right now I'm probably around 15 minutes already. So I think we're going to break it off right there. Get your character into this state. If you try and play the game, like watch what happens now if I play this game. All right. If I try and play the game, my character, I've lost the animation. All right, there's no animation here right now. My character can still move at the appropriate speeds, but he's currently stuck into a certain animation. He's actually stuck in the fall animation, and that's because right now in here we've got this thing set up that if he's not on the ground, stay inside this animation and don't go back in the animation until it's true. And the way we currently have this set up, we're not actually able to tell what is the actual ground layer or not. We haven't set up our little sphere yet. That's all being done through code. Okay? So don't worry about it. If you've got this far and you're like, oh no, everything is broken. Everything is not broken. It's right where it should be. In the next episode, what we're actually going to do all the code for this character to make him jump properly. And in that episode, we'll get back all of our animations. Okay? All right, guys, so we are moving along really, really well, and I really hope you are enjoying this series. I really like to make games, so I hope you guys are following along and making a super awesome game of your own. I'd really like to see it when you're done. Take what I'm showing you here and make something awesome. All right? If it's really awesome, send it to me, and I will show it off on my channel when we're done saying, hey, this guy made games, or this girl made games from what I showed, what I taught them. All right, everyone, I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, let me know with a thumbs up. If you didn't, let me know with a thumbs down. If you give me a thumbs down, please tell me why so I can make changes. I am making these videos to help you, all right? I know how to do this stuff. I'm making them to help you, and if you don't tell me what I'm doing wrong, I can't change, all right? So thumbs up, thumbs down, comments down below, and if you haven't done so, please take a few seconds to subscribe. Have yourselves a wonderful day, everyone.